We've all heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child, but the thing that we often forget is that it also takes one to support the mother.
Well, speaking of the village, this is our podcast. I'm Nicole Harlow.
And I'm Dawn Thompson, and we're here to connect you with a village of support you need from pregnancy to parenting.
So come on this journey with us as we build your village one episode at a time. All right. Hello. We are back. My name is Nicole Harlow, joined by my awesome co-host, Dawn Thompson. And we are joined today by Khristee Rich, who is a healer. She wears many hats. She's an author and speaker. I'm going to turn it over right to her to give us a little bit more insight on what she does. And then we're going to have a really awesome conversation about holistic healing modalities in the perinatal period.
So thank you so much for having me on your show, Nicole. I'm so happy to be talking with both of you. So you're right, I wear a lot of hats. I am a holistic healer. I've been a holistic healer for over 20 years. It's hard to believe it's been so long. And I have supported men, women, children, even pets. But this year I have niched down to help women in the perinatal period. So I now specialize in helping women to conceive naturally and to conceive even if they are 35 and older. So I bust a lot of myths. I empower women. I empower women to be healthy pre-conception and to overcome chronic conditions, and then to be healthy and joyful in pregnancy, labor, and postpartum. I'm also writing a 3-book series about childbirth through a holistic perspective. It's my passion project. I can't wait to birth it into the world. And yes, I am a speaker too and a researcher. So I do a lot, but this is my passion. This is what I love to talk about.
It's great. Well, we're so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, Khristee, you obviously call yourself a holistic healer. What modalities do you use, or what methodology do you use with your clients, specifically in the perinatal period?
So my specialty is Reiki and Russian shamanism. So my journey was actually healing myself. I had a 15-year chronic illness. And through that period of trying to get better, I learned Russian shamanism and Reiki. So I just happened to be at the right place, right time. I studied Russian shamanism before, which is different from other forms of shamanism. Most people have studied shamanism that is influenced by Native American culture. This is very different. And some also do like a fusion blend, but this is specifically, I studied from a Russian shaman, from a man from Siberia who actually came to the US and was sponsored. So I had that rare opportunity. And then shortly after that, I studied Reiki, and then I found a way to blend the two together. So I do not know anyone that blends the two together. I use my imagination to do this. And also, I am really about holding space for my clients. I believe that is an important part of healing that is often missed, to really listen to your clients and to hear their struggles, what they've gone through, to hear their pain, to allow them to vent, and to share what they've tried. So I do that as my specialty, but now that I have niched down to helping women to conceive naturally, now I have all these other tools that I'm also sharing as well.
Awesome. So I'm very familiar with Reiki, but for our listeners who may not know what that actually is, can you give us a very brief definition? And same thing with Russian shamanism, because again, like you mentioned, I'm more familiar with the more Native American culture.
Sure. So both of them are different forms of energy work. Russian shamanism is also a way of life. So I do shamanism as a form of healing, but also in shamanism culture, it is also the belief that we are spirit, that we are in a human body, and we can use different things to support ourselves, such as food as medicine, such as plants and herbs to heal us. And we're also in connection with the spiritual world. So I also bring in ancestors to support during the sessions if they are called in, or sometimes it can be different deities, sometimes it can be archangels, sometimes it can be the person's higher self coming in. And so over the years, I have developed many talents. So I am also clairvoyant, I'm also a medium, so I can connect with other realms, with the spiritual realm to give messages to my clients. And also I am clairvoyant, which means I'm clear seeing. So I can see into the body. I can see where the inflammation is. I can feel. I'm also clairsentient. I can feel what the client feels to help to give a broader understanding of what they're going through, or actually a more detailed understanding of what they're going through. So that is in general what Russian shamanism is. It's similar to Reiki. They're both energy work. They both heal or balance the chakra system. So we have 7 major chakras. We also have minor chakras, such as in our hands. So it works with the 7 major chakras. It also clears the aura. And like I said, connects you to the spiritual realm for shamanism. For Reiki, it's balancing the 7 major chakras. It's also all the organs. Shamanism is also healing the organs as well. But there's 26 different hand positions with Reiki, so it's very specific. And with Russian shamanism, it's more bringing in the power of your imagination to heal, and also breath to heal.
What are some of the things that you see most common for perinatal women, like when they're pregnant and postpartum? What are the things that you're helping them with more frequently?
Well, as I said, I just niched down this year. So for most of my career, for 20 plus years, I have been helping a broad variety of women with different ailments. But now my specialty is helping women to conceive naturally, especially those who are 35 and older. So what I have seen is that a lot of women who are struggling with fertility is because one, they're not viewing it holistically, which means mind, body, and spirit, and then getting into the root cause to understand why they are having these issues, and then to treat it mind, body, and spirit with natural ways and natural remedies. So what I have seen is that a lot of women have chronic conditions. And instead of trying to treat these chronic conditions, they have tried to just conceive a baby. And what I like to emphasize, it's so important for you to be as healthy as possible before you try to conceive. So it's really important for women to try to minimize or overcome their chronic conditions and chronic illnesses. And yes, you can do it naturally. So this is something that I help them with. But also it's very important for them to bring their partners on board too. Do they have chronic conditions? Do they have a chronic illness? Are they obese? So it's really important for it to be both of them working together and not just putting all the pressure and strain on the woman, which is unfair because it takes 2 to make a baby, of course. But also I have seen just how much stress women are going through at this time, how much pressure they put on themselves. And I think this is very unfortunate because what a woman really needs to do is to relax. Right? She really needs to relax her nervous system. And this is something that's not emphasized because they feel this pressure. Oh, I'm getting older. Oh, I've got to do it sooner rather than later. My clock is ticking. And also, they're hearing all these myths. Okay, if you don't do it soon, then you could have an unhealthy baby. You could put your child at risk and have birth complications, be sick during pregnancy, etc. And so I emphasize the importance of them becoming as healthy as possible, not only to conceive, but also so that they are as healthy as possible in pregnancy, labor, and postpartum, and also so they minimize having these birth complications and having an unhealthy child.
Right. And we listened to our doctor, Annette Feinberg, on her episode about how obesity and unhealthy, circumstances like diabetes and hypertension and all of these things are been increasing. And obviously, older women conceiving, which I think is a great thing, but it also leaves more opportunity for all those things to creep in. So that's really great that you focus on that for sure.
Yes. And so I bust a lot of myths because, again, that fear makes it harder to conceive. So I bust a lot of myths that once you are 35 and older, then you will have these birth complications. And it's, again, I just want to emphasize, it's not true. If you are healthy, if you have minimized your hypertension, like Nicole said, or if you have worked through your food and got the diabetes down, then you're not going to have the high risk that comes with what a lot of people say is your age. So it's not really age related. It's based on your health. And if you're healthy, you're not going to have these issues. So that's why I help women to be as healthy and as happy as possible before they conceive, and also to understand that food is medicine. and that we need to start to live a holistic lifestyle before we conceive so that we have these tools throughout the whole pregnancy journey and beyond so that we can then teach our children as well.
I think food and nutrition is so underutilized in pregnancy, in birth, labor. They're like, don't eat at all, but you actually need those you need the electrolytes, you need the fuel for what you're doing. And then specifically postpartum and that recovery, I think there's more, I'll say more, not a lot, but more focus on it now. Dawn, you were saying, right, there was something you had saw about like the meal prep parties for postpartum women, which is great. But like also, are they prepping the right things, right? Is it soft foods? Is it herbs? Is it healing foods? Or is it like pizza and fried chicken?
Right. Right. What do you think? Like, so Khristee, I mean, most of the people that are listening to our podcast are either birth professionals or women that are probably already pregnant. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about like, what do you think are some of the most practical tips that they can take away from this episode on how to have the best pregnancy and postpartum experience from your perspective?
Sure. So I think probably a lot of women who've already had children, they may want to have another child. And they may have had a chronic condition in pregnancy, such as HG, such as gestational hypertension, gestational diabetes. There's so many different conditions. Or they may have developed a postpartum illness. They may have developed postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum psychosis, etc., or had birth complications. And they may be wondering why that happened. And again, they may have fear. So I want to let you know, everyone who's listening, that there is a root cause. There is a reason for every chronic health condition, every chronic illness, and also for birth complications. There are sometimes it is health related. So it's important to see the whole picture. And if you want to have another child, again, it's important for you to focus on the preconception period before you try to conceive, to be as healthy as possible, to go back to your health history and say, oh, I had gestational hypertension before. Let me work with someone like Khristee and let me understand how I can become healthy and not develop it again. How can I minimize or prevent having postpartum depression again, because I don't want to go through that again. And from my research, like I said, I'm a big researcher. From my 3-book series, I interviewed about 100 moms and childbirth experts around the world, including read lots of books and have my background working with women. So I understand health differently because I see it holistically. And again, I think not many women are understanding health holistically because their doctors do not explain it that way. They're from the Western mentality, which is not holistic, which is not mind, body, and spirit, or getting to the root cause. It's basically saying you have this condition. Okay, we have a medication here. Take it. We don't have a medication. There's no cure. So I just want to let women know that they can overcome these conditions that they had so that they have a better birth experience, a better pregnancy experience next time. So it's all about that preparation period before and really trying to work with someone like me so that it can be prevented or so that they can heal naturally if they still have symptoms today.
So is that not something they can do during pregnancy? If they're, if somebody say is listening right now and they're 24 weeks pregnant, is there
they
something
can, but it's always better to do it pre-conception because then you can prevent it happening. So if somebody is watching and they already have HG, it's a little bit harder to treat that once they already have the symptoms versus to help give them the tools so that they do not develop it during pregnancy. But it is possible, and this is also something I can help them with, give them natural tools, different foods to eat, different ways to regulate their nervous system, etc. That will help them. Also energy work. And there's also other practitioners, of course, that they can work with as well. Acupuncturists are great. There's a lot of other healing modalities as well. But yes, to answer your question, you can treat it at the time, but isn't it better to not have it at all?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, right. Yeah. I mean, energy work, I'm a huge proponent of. I became a Reiki practitioner when I was in the middle of fertility treatments with my firstborn and used it throughout my entire pregnancy with him and postpartum. And and have, for sure evolved. I became a Reiki master between my first and second birth. And I really attribute a lot of the connection to my body, connection to the baby, and the intuition heightening that I experienced with my second to that practice that I was doing. And it allowed me to really feel into my body and honestly challenge the doctors that gave me the diagnosis of hypertension, the diagnosis of gestational diabetes, and prove them wrong. Wound up, going on to have an unmedicated birth center birth because I was trusting in my body, because I was connected to it. Whereas a lot of moms would not have had that connection, I think, right? And we talk also about, that mind, body, spirit. I think it's so important to really focus on that holistic view, because so much of our culture is keeping us a floating head, right? Keeping us very disconnected from our physical body, keeping us even more connected from our power and the natural consciousness that comes within us when we are pregnant, right? I say this all the time. If we trusted the natural consciousness in labor and birth that we do the entire 9 months that we're pregnant, we would have such different outcomes. For some reason, every single day of our gestation while we're pregnant, we totally surrender to our body to grow the baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't wake up every day and say, today I'm going to grow some lungs. Tomorrow, let's work on the toes. Like, we don't have any say. We just let it happen, right? We fully surrender. Then labor comes and our first contractions hit and the time goes off and we're like, we need to control it. We can't let our body do it.
We're conditioned to believe that we need all the support in labor and that we can't do it all on our own. And that's also something that I am trying to spread awareness about and teach my clients, is that you can have an empowered birth. You can feel empowered and not need all these interventions and medications and outside help. So it's very important to plant these seeds, I believe, again, during the preconception time, because once the doctors come in and they start saying things and then the horror stories from friends, and it's like so much information overload, you don't know who to trust and believe, and you forget to trust and believe yourself.
Yeah, 100%. So, and I think also, to a point, if you are listening and you've been listening to all of our episodes, you've heard it right from the horse's mouth that obstetricians don't really see or experience natural physiological birth. So if you then walk into an obstetrician's office and say, hey, guide me, I want an unmedicated natural birth, they don't even know what that looks like. They don't know what that feels like. They don't know how that even happens. What they're trained on is intervention and and making sure that baby comes out safely and safe in their terms, not safe in a non-traumatic sense for us. So I think, the energy work and just having that holistic connection to your body, to your baby, to your mind, that, regulated nervous system, to feel all the feelings and understand what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And, is so important. I think it's a missing piece of a lot of our.
Well, and I think I want to dive in a little bit deeper into the simplicity of what you guys are talking about, because I'll just tell you that for me, I'll just think about the first time that I got acupuncture. I didn't get it. I'm somebody who's very type A. And I don't know how else to describe that, but I avoided acupuncture forever because I just thought, how could sticking needles in your body do anything? Like, I just felt like, and quite frankly, I was kind of like, that's just too woo-woo for me. And I'm sure there are people listening to this episode right now, energy work, whatever, right?
Well, I'll share really quickly. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll share really quickly that I was just like you too, because I grew up going to the doctor and believing that the doctor had all the answers. Just listen to your doctor and basically don't question your doctor. But it wasn't until I had my 15-year chronic illness that I tried everything. And then for the first time ever, I learned that my doctors weren't really listening to me. They weren't really taking in what I was saying. They weren't believing me that I was sick. Immediately, they wanted to put me on antidepressants. And I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm just, something is physically wrong with this body. I know this body.
Right.
And so I went on this long and winding road, and I couldn't get the answers from my doctor. And I was so disappointed. And that's why I sought alternative health and wellness. That's why I went to the acupuncturist. That's why I learned Reiki to heal myself. That's why I learned shamanism, because I was desperate to get better, to get back to my old self, because I was young and I had no answers from my doctors. They weren't willing to go to the root cause. And that's how I got onto that path. So I'm sure some people who are listening can relate to that you've had a chronic illness, that you've tried everything, you've listened to your doctor and still haven't gotten better. So maybe now is a good time to open up and try something new.
Right. And well, the only reason I wound up doing it was because she was looking for a doula, and she said offered trade. And I was like, well, everybody has told me this is what I should be trying. I was struggling with fertility.
Okay.
And I had had 2 previous children. It had been many years though. And now here I was 36 and trying to get pregnant, and it was not going well. And so I was like, well, what have I got to lose at this point? Right? Like, I'll try it. And she basically said to me, like, oh, when I went, she was like, I had gone because I was having I had had a miscarriage. And since then I'd been having crazy periods. And so that was what I went for. And then she said to me, well, now, Dawn, are you sure, like, if I do this, are you on any kind of birth control? Because you will potentially become very fertile. And I was like, whatever. I've been trying to get pregnant for 3 years. It's not happening, whatever. And so she said, with acupuncture, you're really supposed to have, or, your cycle is supposed to be 3 to 4 days max. You should not have a bunch of spotting. You shouldn't be whatever. I had all these issues. I was like 7 to 10 days, spotting in between, like all kinds of crazy stuff. So she did 1 session. I had my next cycle 2 weeks later. It was 3 days. 1 session, 3 days. And the next month I was pregnant.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
So I was like, well,
yeah,
it's very powerful. It's very powerful.
Explain it. I can't explain it. I don't understand it, but it worked. So I'm going to go with that. So, I just want to address the people who might be a little skeptical, and I totally get it, but it doesn't hurt to look at something different. And I think that we have, like you said, we've all just been brought up in this doctor knows best mentality, but understanding that doctors are trained in pathology.
Yes.
They are not trained in physiology. And there is a very big difference there. And gosh, if we could combine the two, and unfortunately,
if they were holistic too, they're not trained to be holistic either.
Right. They're just, most of the time, like, we go into the doctor's office and, like, as a perimenopausal woman now, I went into my obstetrician or the gynecologist to talk about that sort of stuff. And their answer was to put me on birth control.
I know.
That's wild yam cream.
What?
Wild yam cream. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
Well, but I want to say detoxification. So detoxification is actually the best kept secret people don't know about. So this is actually what I recommend to women who would like to conceive and they're having trouble conceiving, to detox, and not just to do a physical detox, but mind, body, and spirit, a holistic detox. So that's very helpful for women who would like to conceive, because we are bombarded with toxins these days. This is a big reason why many women are not able to conceive. A lot of women, like you said, are put on birth control at a very young age for different health conditions. And that's, creating an issue because they're on medication for so long. It's a lot of different things that, again, are not being talked about and not being understood by women. And I just want to emphasize how important it is to have this knowledge before trying to conceive. And also similarly, for women who are perimenopause or menopause, detoxification really is the answer, because again, we are bombarded with all of these toxins, all of these medications we've been taking probably for years at that point, and nobody's emphasizing how important it is to release them from our bodies for our bodies to get back into balance. So this is also something that I teach that's very important.
So, Khristee, speaking on that, like detoxification sounds really overwhelming and scary to anyone who has a lot of things going on, right? Because it's a word that maybe they're unsure of. So can you elaborate a little bit on like what that means? Like what are some practical things that like I know I'm huge into Epsom salt baths, especially for my children. Like if they have any kind of fever, stuffy nose, anything, before I hit the medicine cabinet, they all get thrown into the bath with Epsom salt because usually 9 times out of 10, they're fine the next day after that because it, pulls out that it detoxes them. But I'm sure what you're talking about is a lot more extensive, but breaking it down, what are those like practical things that they can do?
Sure. So it is very important, again, to know everyone's health history. So that's why I say always work with someone like myself. So for instance, with the Epsom salt, you have to be very careful, again, if somebody has hypertension. If somebody has hypertension, you can't have an Epsom salt bath because they shouldn't have more sodium. And Epsom salt, normally you have a whole cup, sometimes 2 cups, and that could really create an issue for some people. But there's natural and easy ways to detox. And I think you're right, Nicole. I think there's so many people who say detoxification, that's so much to do. That's so
parasite
scary.
Cleansing, all that like scary stuff that comes
overwhelming. And that's what I want to emphasize to people is it doesn't have to be drastic. I want you to start to slowly incorporate it into your life, and it can be so easy. So one simple tip I'll give listeners is that you can just take sea algae. You can just take chlorella or spirulina daily, and I can give you a link to give to your listeners. I really recommend a company called Energy Bits, and it's high quality. It is only one ingredient. It's only sea algae. So either you get the chlorella or you get the spirulina, or you can get the combination of the 2 in 1, but no sugar added, no dairy, no gluten, no chemicals, nothing but sea algae. And it is food. It's a superfood. It's not a supplement. Okay, so a lot of people are confused about that being a supplement. It's what geese eat when they're on a pond. So it's all natural. And this is actually very alkaline. So we want our bodies to be alkaline for us to have health. And also it's detoxifying, which means that it draws out the toxins. So as I mentioned, we have chemicals in our world that we didn't have hundreds of years ago that are man-made, that are in our air, they're in our body care products, they're on our clothes, they're on our furniture, they're being sprayed on everything, and they're sprayed on our food even, which is so scary with pesticides and herbicides, and we are exposed to them daily. So we need to help our livers. Our liver, I believe, is one of our most important organs. It does 500 functions naturally, and it doesn't have to be told what to do. It just knows to do it. But when we are bombarded with so many toxins, and this can be chemicals, this can also be heavy metals. That was the cause of my 15-year illness. I had very high levels of heavy metals, mercury and lead off the charts. And that is what created illness for me. And that is something that can happen for women too. And that's why, again, I encourage women to detox before conceiving, because heavy metals will pass down through birth. And that means chronic conditions.
I mean, this is my own personal opinion, but I think it's why we're struggling with autism. I think women have a heavy amount of heavy metals in our systems, and when we are pregnant, we're just, and I have a child with autism, and I felt like, she was my first kid after many years, and I just couldn't help but think that for me, it was like that my body was just dumped all of that into her after decades of not having children, right? At least that's my theory. But obviously that is a theory. We do not know that for sure. But I'm just saying, like, my with the knowledge that I've learned in this world of maternal health, it's something that intuitively makes sense to me. So I encourage detoxification before getting pregnant if you can, if you know you're planning.
I do too. And just to quickly say off of that, I am doing research on that for book 1. So I am writing book 1 hopefully will be coming out soon. I've been working on it for 5 years, but it's going to be really great. For book one, I actually do have a childbirth survey, and I ask moms who already have given birth to fill out the survey about their birth experience. And I do have a part in there trying to understand why certain conditions are happening for children, such as autism and processing disorders. So if there are any moms who are listening and who would like to contribute to this research so that we have more understanding, I encourage you to fill out a survey. You can go to my website, www.thedancingcurtain.com. It's on the homepage. Fill it out, and you can even win a prize. Yes.
Awesome.
I think also, like you said, it's all the chemicals, it's all the heavy metals, it's all of these things that come into our bodies and then are transposed to baby bodies, and their systems just can't take it.
Exactly.
And so it's about, you know, how many, I see it all the time on social media, like, oh, I would die for my child, right? And then the question is like, but will you get healthy for them? But will you do this, right? Like, it's harder, I think, it's easier to say, hey, I take a bullet for my child than it is to like get healthy for myself and live a long, healthy life and show them the way of, you know, eating better. And I personally I'm not perfect by any means, but like we try not to do dyes, like artificial dyes in our house. We try to, you know, be as, I don't want to say the word crunchy, because it gets a lot of like bad rap, good rap, you know, whatever. But we definitely try, we try to be natural. We try to, as much as, you know, we can control. And then you go into anyone's house and it's like, or any party or any event, and it's just like dye filled everything.
I know. It's crazy.
And even things, oh my gosh, I remember when I first got into this, this mindset, I like went and I was like, all right, I'm not going to like buy Fruit Loops or any of the like colored cereals. I'm going to buy Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and then wound up like not even looking, getting home, and it has all 3 artificial colors in it. And I'm like, but it's brown and wheat is brown. So why is there color in there? Like, it was just wild. So now I'm so much more mindful. And for listeners that, you know, we talk about this all the time, like pregnancy is like information overload. So this may be like, oh my gosh, I have to find even more things to worry about. No, like Khristee says, it's little changes. We're not saying that you have to go from 0 to 100 overnight. Again, I've been on this journey now 6-7 years. And listen, my kids last night, we were at my mom's house for dinner, and my Nona, who's 81, brought cupcakes that are bright orange icing for Halloween, you know, fall time. And what am I going to do? You know, break my Nona's heart, say, no, they can't eat them, there's dye.
But the good thing is, like you said, you can be proactive and you can still allow yourself to have some of these normalcies that are part of our culture. But if you are doing the detoxification daily, naturally, just like taking chlorella, then you know that you're extracting those chemicals, those heavy metals out of your system. And just quickly to mention is that with heavy metals, they do not come out of your system through time. So they only come out when you have specific substances such as the chlorella, which will chelate, which will attach to them and then draw them out of the blood. So I have been doing all the, you know, healthy things, you know, eating well, doing the organic and doing yoga, etc., acupuncture, and I still didn't get well because I still had the heavy metals. But once I detoxed, once I took the chlorella, and also I took some other food and started meditating daily and just kept the positive mindset that I would get well, that I would get over this. And that's an important part of health, is believing. And I believed, and every single day I took the food and just said, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. And then I was able to overcome it in 1 month. 1 month through detoxification. I was sick 15 years. So it is very possible, just like Dawn mentioned that she was able to become fertile and conceive very easily. It's very possible to overcome a chronic illness very easily too. And it could be as easy as detoxification. And again, detoxification has a bad rap, but it can be as easy as taking chlorella. It can be as easy as doing things that can easily fit into our lives.
Yeah. And I'll say, just to add my story, like I said, I became a Reiki practitioner, and it was we tried for 14 months naturally to conceive. And then I think it was like the very beginning of month 2 that we were trying with the fertility treatments that I became a Reiki 1 and conceived later that month.
Beautiful.
So
Beautiful.
And what you said was so important too, is believing, right?
Yes.
Believing in it. And to bring my subconscious background into this, Khristee, you also said using your imagination, right? Like,
Yes.
I think many adults, they say, oh, imagination, that's for kids, blah, blah, blah. But it's so important for our subconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference. Our subconscious does not know the difference between reality and our imagination. So our visualization, our creative powers that we have, if we can sit in that space, in that picture, in that mindset of conceiving, of having a great pregnancy, of having a great birth, of having a gentle postpartum.
Yes.
The subconscious, one, its prime directive is to preserve the body. So it's going to do the best it can to protect the body and what it's seeing. It's 2, a very like, I'm getting this done. Like Dawn, you're saying you're type A, like the subconscious is type A. It's give me the directions and I will get it done. And I'm not going to stop until I get it done. So if it's seeing, I can't get pregnant, I can't get pregnant, I can't get pregnant, it's not going to get pregnant.
Yeah.
If it's seeing, oh my God, look at this beautiful pregnancy I'm having, this beautiful birth experience, and this beautiful gentle postpartum, that's what it's going to do.
Yes, it helps you to manifest. So your imagination is powerful. Your imagination can create.
Yeah, there's sports athletes that will literally sit there and visualize them winning races, them doing plays, because the subconscious, again, doesn't know whether it's actually happening or whether you're imagining it.
Yes. And this is also a very important part of conceiving that I want to emphasize too, is that it should be joyful. It should be pleasurable. It should be something you're excited for, to become a mom and to bring a baby into the world. And a lot of people who feel, oh, there's something wrong with my body. First, again, they're putting themselves down, and then they go through IVF, then they go through IUI. And then the whole process is so difficult, is so painful, is so stressful. And that makes it harder to conceive. But if you work with someone like me and you make it joyful, you learn how to relax, you learn how to play, get in touch with your inner child, have some good, healthy food that you love and enjoy, the power of community, getting together with other moms and friends and just having a good time, then it becomes easier and more pleasurable. And that's what I want to emphasize too.
Yeah. And Dawn, to your point before, if you're listening and you think this is woo-woo and all the things, remember that this is all how it used to be. Just like we talk about in almost every episode, how like it used to be the village, it used to be community-based care for moms, and it used to be very different than it is now. So we've been conditioned to think about being using our inner child and using our natural consciousness and energy work and all of this stuff, using herbs and food as medicine. It's not new. It's not a new, none of it is new. It's
in fact, Western medicine is new.
Western medicine is new. Yeah.
And even Chinese medicine is not new. It's been around for thousands of years, right?
So
but we just don't
remember that.
Yeah, exactly. Great points.
Yeah.
So also, really quickly, I just want to also mention the work that I do is also giving women enough information before they conceive so they can give informed consent and informed refusal during the labor period. Because again, I feel that women aren't given enough information at that time, and it's that time where they really need to go inward. It's hard to hear from nurses and doctors what to do. And so if you have the time beforehand to really weigh everything, I think it's going to make the birth experience so much easier and better for you.
And I think it's like a muscle that you have to practice, right? You have to know from beginning of pregnancy, asking the right questions, being okay to,
speak up
and and understand that you're the consumer that is hiring these professionals and you're not the victim who is just, being told what to do.
You don't have to say yes to everything they suggest, right? It's a suggestion.
So, All right, awesome. Well, this was really enlightening, Khristee. I really appreciate you coming on and
Oh, my
discussing with
pleasure.
us. Like I said, I think, listen, there's certain people who are listening who are probably like, not me. But I think also maybe some that open their eyes and are really, really into it. Like I said, I know one of the reasons I hired my doula was because she was Reiki certified and I had just gotten Reiki certified. And I was like, she like that kind of tipped her over the scale from all the ones that I had interviewed, because I was like, wait, I just have this connection, and she knows like what I used to get pregnant, she can now use in my labor. So I think it's,
Yeah.
it's expanding, and I think the awareness of energy healing in general is also becoming more accepted in a wide variety as well. So
And it can even be nature healing. So
yeah.
if you're not open to energy work, it can be just saying, okay, well, I'm going to go outside in nature and I'm going to relax. And I'm going to make sure I do that every single day, connect to the sun, connect to the grass, and relax and not feel like I've got to do all the time. And that
Yeah.
is healing too.
Absolutely. Love earthing.
Yes.
So before we go, I do want to ask you one last question. So speaking of the village, besides your role as a holistic healer, who would you say is the most important role for a woman or a family to have during their perinatal period?
I would say to work with a doula. So I highly recommend that listeners work with a doula in pregnancy, labor, and postpartum. A lot of people think that doulas are only to assist with birth, but they can help so much more. And again, they're giving you emotional support. They are your advocate during birth. They can help you with massage. They can help you with simple tools so that you feel better. And the more support you have, the healthier you will be and the better birth experience you will have. So for those, yes. So
that
for those,
takes me back to one of our other guests, which was like mind-boggling. It's the simplest thing, but she said most people, when they're going out to the internet, they're looking for support, but what they get is information. And support is the thing that most of us need. And you cannot, she said, if you're looking for support, put the phone down. Put the laptop away. Call someone that loves you.
Yeah.
Or call someone who can actually give you the support that you need. But a lot of people don't know the difference between the two. And they just go out there stuck in the dark, deep rabbit hole that is the internet. And what they really need is support and not information.
yes. Well said. We need emotional support. We need somebody to hold space for us. Again, that is so healing. Just to have someone listen.
Yeah.
So
being
for
heard,
those-
being seen, being held.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So for those who are listening, I have some resources for you. So if you would like to learn more about the work that I do, you will share it in the show notes. That will take you to a free PDF to bust some myths about birth. And as I mentioned, I really recommend that you work with a doula. So I have created an international doula directory. I'm very excited. I will be sharing it with book 1 coming out. I'm sharing it with my clients. I'm sharing it with my list. So if you're interested, you can always reach out to get the list of doulas. But also, if you are a doula and you're watching, you can join the list. So again, you can go to my homepage, thedancingcurtain.com. There is a button there. You can submit your information, and then I can share with others to support more moms.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Speaking of the Village. If you loved today's episode, make sure to hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
And remember, you're not alone. We're here, we're listening, and we're all in this together, because in our village, no mom walks alone.